All right, should we get started?
Let's go do it.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody, for coming in person and online. Tonight is our kind of official kickoff to the 2024 baseball season. Registration is still open and tryouts are this weekend for next year's teams. So this meeting is informational, a lot of content we'll go through. We'll kind of wait till the very end to answer questions because hopefully we have everything kind of covered throughout the presentation. So quick agenda for tonight. Do a quick welcome, board intros, talk about the programs that we have, the different age groups and what to expect within each one, key dates to look up for, tryout details and the process that we kind of go through as an organization, discuss coaching and player safety because that's a key component to what we do. Volunteering is also very important because we are a volunteer-run organization. And lastly is different ways to support CAA diamond sports. You hear the term diamond sports, what that is meant to represent is both baseball and softball as a collective group. So we're the baseball side of diamond sports, but there's many ways to support the holistic diamond sports program. Excellent. We jumped straight into this one. That's the next one. We changed the slides up a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, we are a volunteer-run organization. There's to be some slides later on that kind of talk about the different board positions that we have. But this is really kind of highlight the key volunteers that help run the organization, from baseball uniforms to scheduling to baseball equipment, and even team pictures. Like a lot goes into this to make things happen behind the scenes. So these key volunteers are critical. Next year, we'll actually have a few open positions. If you're all interested in volunteering, you can come see one of us after the meeting is done, and we'd be happy to talk about what that looks like. So, am I going to kick it off to you?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Actually, real quick intros. I'm Nick Hanskin, president of baseball. I'm here with Derek Schwartz, Ken Flottmeyer, and Pat Cassidy, age directors and player agents. We'll walk through a bunch of these slides together and we'll again answer questions at the very end. Okay.
All righty. Well, Nick said, my name is Derek Schwartz. Want to just talk a little bit about looking back in 23. It's crazy to think that we're here talking about 24, but here we are, 23. We had about 250 kids that played Metro baseball last year. You can see through the ages of 9 through 15, total about 21 teams. And you can kind of see each age group of where it was at. Some consistencies, some areas where there's age groups that have a couple more teams than the rest, but overall, we're trying to provide an opportunity for kids to play baseball. 250 kids playing travel baseball is pretty exciting. Specifically, I want to talk a little bit about the 9U team. So 9U is a little bit different than the rest of Metro. So if you are just coming into the program as a 9s, you've done a coach pitch, you did machine pitch.
Laughter.
No, I'm not sure what happened.
It's in your seat. It's still showing online, so that's good.
Is it?
Well,
Can you still see it online? Tom?
Yeah, you can. You can see the slide on.
Okay. I needed to. How do I reshare, Tom?
I think you might have changed the source somehow of the projector. Did you bump is there a button, or maybe it's where Kim's standing, there's a button?
Or did you lean against the wall?
I wonder if I did.
Yeah,
The white thing behind you?
that's right. That thing right there.
No, I was over here. I wonder if I bumped that.
Could be.
Do I just stop sharing and reshare? That'd be easiest.
yeah, that'd be easiest.
Either way, you might have to.
Sorry, folks,
Yeah,
for
it's yours.
online.
Yeah, clicking that button again.
No, I'm going to stop sharing and reshare. Nope. What's going on here?
At least for online, it's working. Yeah. Big exciting announcement. Well, I can talk a little bit about nines as we kind of get the projection in here figured out. It is still showing online for those that are watching. As I was mentioning, nines is a little bit different because it is combined with our travel is combined with in-house. So you don't play league games at nines. This is just nine travel is really just the weekend tournaments. So you get 3 weekend tournaments. You get the same jerseys, 2 pairs of pants, the hat, but it is 3 weekend tournaments that are covered. And then the opportunity if the teams qualify and choose to play in either Gopher State or the MBT, that you have an opportunity to play those tournaments as well.
I don't know why it's.
It's showing your second screen.
Is it?
You probably do Windows P and just screens too.
Put that back there.
Well,
Keep on here. Okay, so that's your second screen that's projecting there. So if you hit present right now, it'll just automatically present on the second screen. It's like there you go. But this is your escape. What was it? Oh, I'm not a Windows person. Oh, Windows P. There you go. Now you're good.
All right,
It's about this distance also. It's just like this.
there we go.
all right, then we can go
right.
into the. We'll do this guy right here. All right. So cost for that, actually, I should have mentioned it was $625. It covers tournaments, covers in-house, covers your jerseys, covers actually in-house t-shirts, cost as well. Moving into 10s and 11s. This is where you kind of get that first taste of actually playing Metro League baseball. So during the weeks, we get to go to different cities, organizations around kind of the Chanhassen area. Can be as far as like Maple Grove, to the north, maybe as far as south as New Prague. But typically you find teams that are going to be pretty close to cities right around the Chan area. This also covers 3 weekend tournaments. Cost is $565, gets you the home and away jerseys, 2 pairs of pants, the hats, and then the opportunity if teams qualify and they choose to do so, get the opportunity to play in either the Gopher State and or MBT as well. The commitment to 10s and 11s, you typically do baseball 3 to 4 times a week. Usually, 1 or 2 games. And then the times that you have 1 game, usually it's 2 practices. If you have 2 games, it's usually 1 practice. And then if you have the weekend tournaments, that can be Friday, Saturday. And if you're lucky, you get to play Sunday as well. 10s and 11s typically play at Lake Ann, so fields 2, 3, 4, 5. There is a field over at Bandemere. Victoria Lions is typically where these teams play.
It's still kind of screwed up.
Is it?
Yeah,
All right.
I think, what was the one that you just mirror display?
Is the Windows P?
Windows P.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just duplicate. Okay, and then
Screen share again.
yeah, and then I'm just gonna share the main screen because it's like duplicated, right? And then now, does anyone know how to like make this go into present mode? I don't use that very often. There we go.
It's working.
Boom. Well, good enough. That'll work, right?
And it's on ours too.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Takes a village, you know?
One just talked also then 12, 13, 14s. This is a group that typically has been around for a little bit. They've kind of had that experience wanting to compete or have a little bit more commitment. So fee for this is $600. This actually gets you 4 weekend tournaments. So it actually goes from 3 to 4 when you hit that 12 level. Get an opportunity where if you do qualify, you can play additional Gopher State MBT tournaments as well. Same Metro League is very similar to 10s and 11s. Thing about the 12, 13, 14s is that you kind of move off those smaller fields at Lake Ann and start to move into some of our other parks, Diethelm, Bandemere, and then eventually up into Lake Susan as well there. So a lot of similarities there between the 10s and 11s. What we did want to take a minute here because and just kind of address as 12s, a lot of times the 12-year-old team does an out-of-state tournament. This is optional, you don't have to do it, but it has been something that has been done by almost all the teams for the past several years. This can be where folks have gone to Cooperstown, Pigeon Forge, Omaha, the Dells, Sioux Falls, Iowa, different places. Whereas a team, you just go, you travel, you play in these different tournaments, and just as a team, you combine, you work together, and just have some fun. Try to find something to do in that city as well that just kind of really works on bringing that team together. There are fundraising opportunities that are available for the different teams to help try to offset some of these costs, especially the ones that are going to some of the larger places like Cooperstown, or if they're going to Pigeon Forge, because those tournaments, the travel, it gets to be pretty expensive there. And so we do encourage that and utilizing the CAA fundraising guidelines to ensure that we're doing that correctly and representing ourselves well to our community. So, yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, real quick on this one, again, the national tournament is this unique opportunity for the 12-year-olds. It doesn't mean a 13-year-old or 14-year-old team can't do it, but 12-year-olds are primarily the age group. This is most associations in the state anyway, where they do go to a regional or national tournament. Teams do fundraise, like you said, Derek. Once teams are announced in September, there'll be information handed out to the head coaches around what kind of fundraising is allowed and how that money needs to either cycle through the association or can go directly to the team. But again, that information, that guidance will come once teams are announced and head coaches are identified.
Perfect. All right, I did talk a little bit about MBT and go for state tournaments. These are year end where you have to qualify to get into these tournaments. Typically, if you're in some of the older age groups, you're very familiar with competing in either or potentially both of these tournaments. Some of these tournaments can be held as close as, Chanhassen actually hosts 2 of the tournaments, or they can be out, a little bit out of state. Rochester, Sartell, I think were as far as they were away, but most of them are in somewhere in the metro area, Bloomington, Farmington, Rosemount, some of those different areas. But it's an opportunity for kids to compete against really the state's best at that level. Typically, so this is an add-on cost. Typically, each of these tournaments with the registration fee, gate fee, averaged to be about $55 a player last year to compete in these state tournaments. And you can have some pretty special memories if you qualify. As a team, you can decide if you want to do it or not. Speaking as a coach, those were some of the more special memories that you've had, and definitely encourage you to do one, and if you feel like that, to even do to both there as well. I don't think this is me.
Yeah,
This is me.
Yep.
Still me?
Yep.
All right. One of the things.
Doing great there.
Yeah, thank you. Are all 26 slides mine? So anyway, one of the things that we want to share in this meeting here that's really important to us is to share transparently as we are right now. This is actually these numbers that you see were just before 6 p.m. tonight of just overall the numbers of kids at each age group that have registered to play baseball. We share these numbers so that way you have an idea of where we're looking at number of teams per age group. In some of these, if we can get a couple more kids, it will allow us to form an additional team. And so we wanted to share that in this forum as well, so that way you as parents can maybe help do some recruiting as well to bump some of these numbers up, so that way we can form that extra team, so we don't have to necessarily look at reducing down sizes to for the number of teams. So just wanted to see there. Typically you want to have 12 kids on a team. You can do 11, but really 12 is kind of that number that we try to aim for. So 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. When you do the math up there is where we're trying to hit those milestones. And so definitely if you can help us, especially within 11s, we want to try to get a couple more and in the 13s as well.
One quick thing to add with this one.
Yeah.
So again, our goal is not to cut. Let's get as many kids playing baseball as possible. With that being said, if there are cuts that are made, it's not what we want to do, but we have formed a partnership with Chaska to do a combined team Chaska players to, again, fill a roster of 12 to 13 kids. So again, our goal is not to cut, but sometimes numbers dictate this. But we've formed a great partnership with Chaska to combine our kids with theirs. We actually had one team this year that did that, and they had great success, a lot of fun. So just wanted to call it out.
Yep, appreciate that.
That's the goal.
Alrighty, and then just kind of give a timeline of really from today, really through first pitch. What's kind of going on, and what's the approximate time frame. And so, as Nick made mention earlier, we do have tryouts this Friday through Sunday. The times are out there; they're posted for each of the age groups. Then after that, on the 23rd and 24th of August, we're doing a coaches interviews. This is actually for head coaches. We'll do interviews for the head coaches. If you are someone who's interested in being a head coach and you have not yet signed up, please do that. I think that we have until, I don't know, what's the day that we have coaches registration open for? Another week?
Another week or two.
Yeah. Yep. So, but don't delay on that. We do need good head coaches. But we also want to make sure that head coaches are going to represent the association and the community well, which is why we do these interviews to ensure that we're being represented well, and that we're giving the kids the best opportunity to have a coach that's going to teach them, but also give them success as well. Typically, the first week of September is when we're going to do the team selections for teams, players, head coaches. Those announcements will actually come out right around September 9th. As we get a little bit closer to that date, that could move a little bit, but we'll continue to post that through social media, let everyone know exactly when those teams are going to be announced, when they'll be posted, so that way everyone can go and take a look at that. That will take a month or two off. We'll do uniform fitting come the late fall, early winter in November and in December. And then after that, in November, December, and January is when the coaches will sign up for tournaments. So we try to get as much of that done prior to end of December as possible. Usually right around that third week of December is when we start to see tournaments start to fill up. So we always try to encourage coaches to sign up for tournaments as early as possible. You can wait into January as well, but that's when we'll start to see some of the more popular tournaments fill up as well. We'll start our off-season program in the Dome come in February, so that February and in March this year. And then hopefully, if the weather cooperates with us, we'll get out before the end of May, like we did this year. We'll actually be able to get out, practice maybe at end of April, and start playing league games in that first week of May. So,
real quick, this always comes up every year. When can we get out on the fields? The association does not dictate that. That's done by the cities. So the city of Chanhassen and the city of Victoria will tell us when the fields are open. So we obviously are on top of it, get the schedules out there right away. But it's the cities that dictate when we can actually get on the fields and use the fields. So.
Excellent. I think I'm going to turn over to Pat now to talk a little bit about the overall tryout process.
Pat, come on up. You want to sit here, there?
Sure.
Better read it.
Okay, let's see here. Tryouts are coming up. A lot of questions have come in. Tryouts are coming up this weekend. We will be at Lake Ann Field Park, whatever you want to call it. Pretty much Friday afternoon, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Tryouts will be for 9s through 14s, everybody trying out for those teams, so the 9U team all the way through the 14U team. We will, we have independent third-party evaluators, contrary to popular belief. We're not ranking the kids. We merely just make sure everybody gets the same evaluation across the board. So there's nothing done by the board to sway one thing or another. It is done by third-party evaluations. We take that information, and then I think we'll be on a different slide here, but we take that information and then we parcel through that data, and we make sure, again, every kid has the same evaluation. If you're unable to make it, it's highly recommended you make the tryout dates this weekend. There's most likely going to be a makeup date that is going to be coming up. Is it going to be on the next slide? It's going to be coming up probably a week after. That night is being determined by the city when they'll allow us permits for the field. But it's just generally just a better situation for all kids if you're be able to make it for the tryouts. Really, a makeup date is just worst case scenario. Funeral, or you had a vacation that you didn't know about. Once you get in the program, you figure out how to plan your vacations after tryouts, and then everything goes a little bit according to plan, a little smoother. So really at the end of the day, kind of our goal is to just make sure. So I run 9s, 10s, 11s, and I will also be doing 12s this year because the other coordinator or player agent has a kid who will be 12 years old. So we make sure he's not involved in that. And so he'll be doing 13s and 14s. So with that, we just want to make sure each kid, again, gets a fair shake, gets the fair evaluation, knows what they're doing, hits every station that we're going through, and just make sure that they have good experience, right? So we talk to them before they get during tryouts, we talk to them as they're warming up, and then we're talking to them in between every chance we get, just to make sure they're nervous, right? It's just kind of a big deal for them. They want to make that team, and we try to do the best to make sure they have that opportunity to do it. So really put them, when all is said and done, put them on the right team, put them, hopefully align with coaches, and just have a good, fun experience for that season. Perfect. Next one. So tryout dates and times, these are posted on the site, but feel free, again, this will be posted tomorrow. So we'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. For 9s, really, it's just one opportunity for those guys to come in. The other ones, so 10s, 11s, 12s, and 13s and 14s all have 2 tryout dates. It is important that you make both, right? It's not kind of a one or the other. It's the ideal situation is you show up and you're there for both tryouts. We average the scores. So, if you have a great tryout the first day and you end up sick, hey, God bless you, but you don't know if you had a great tryout, because I have 2 kids, 2 boys have been through the program, and how you guys do? We did great. And then I see the score when I go and pick teams, and it didn't do so great. So, want to just make sure that, the kids are there for both dates. It's very, very important. Plus, usually first day is not usually as good. Second day, they understand it. They've gone through the process. Nerves are calmed a little bit, and they're able to have a better opportunity to perform. Really just on birth dates, just want to make sure everybody sees this. Typically we do an audit process on when people sign up. Just want to make sure you're looking at those birth dates. There are opportunities to play up or down depending on your birth date, but you got to sign up accordingly. If you screwed up, if you made a mistake, feel free to reach out to somebody on the board, myself or Nick, and we can try to get you back into that right age group. It's imperative you do that kind of right now. Signups end tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. And we're making groups right now on who's trying out when and what kids are with what group. So if you signed up for 13s, but you really should have signed up for 12s, it's pretty important that you sign up for 12s, because your kid's probably not going to look as good because he's just not old enough to be able to shine at 13. So just kind of important to make sure you understand those opportunities.
Pat, real quick.
Yeah.
You want to talk about why the 9s do 1 tryout versus 2?
So they're coming off in-house, right? Machine pitch, coach pitch, kind of combination. I know that's kind of evolving. Really it's to get a look. There's not AAA, AA, single A for those guys. We make typically a goal is at least 3 equal teams is kind of our goal. Sometimes we've had 2, but we take the kids, we just kind of rank them, and then we just kind of do a snake draft. So we try to make as many equal teams as possible to give as many kids the opportunity to go get that kind of taste of travel baseball and get parents introduced to that. So it's a good opportunity. I would say it's less critical for them to come back for that second time and really put them through that second eval to make sure we stack rank versus the snake rank. So that's kind of what we're doing with those kids. Tryout logistics, top right corner there, age appropriate. So we will try the kids out They will pitch off the appropriate mound. They will run the appropriate distances. They will field from the appropriate distances. So we'll make sure that it's kind of more simulated to the size and field that they are accustomed to playing on or will be playing on. So we're not going to try out the 10s and they're not, playing on the 90-foot bases. That's not happening. That's for the kids who are going to be playing on those big fields. So just make sure we try to do it age appropriate from that perspective. They should show up with their baseball bags. These kids, if you've played, they have it. If you played in-house, I'm assuming they have it, but they should definitely be showing up. Bat, helmet, glove, and a water bottle is important because it's hot and they will have an opportunity to go grab a break. But make sure you have your equipment. If it's batting gloves, make sure we got the cleats. Just, have them wear their nut cups because that's an important thing too. So just make sure we're covered on all fronts, and it just makes it go a lot smoother. There are kids who panic, who don't have their equipment sometimes, and sometimes you can see the tryout score reflects that just because they are just so worried about everything else other than just showing up to perform. So it's imperative on the parents just to make sure that they're ready to go. They're nervous enough. They don't need anything else to worry about. So really appreciate if we can that we have no baseball attire gear like I played AAA last year or I'm on the Pine Tar Club team. We don't want any of that. We do our best to eliminate it. Sometimes we'll put tape over it if that's the case, if we have to, but we just want kids to show up and not have any intimidation factor. I mean, it's just a fair shot for each kid, right? And they're 9s through 14s, and I think they deserve that. So that's kind of the goal there. Finally, parents, it's a policy we've just think it's best for the kids. It's just drop off and pick up only. So, we're not looking for volunteers. We have the volunteer sign up sheet. So those of you who are already signed up, it's great, but we don't need more people in the parking lot staring and seeing what Timmy or Tommy did and then comparing them to little Joey. That's not the goal. That's not the expectation. It's just truly drop your kid off, wish him luck, make sure he signed in, get him in the right direction, and it'll all be pretty self-explanatory when you get there. And really just have that opportunity to, again, wish them luck, head on out, and then, we'll be done on the time or as close to it as humanly possible. So feel free to just kind of come back at that assigned time. Makes it a lot easier. And if we're consistent with it for everybody, it makes it even better. And we don't want Derek there and Pat's not there. Let's just all do our part. And makes things easier.
That's actually important to follow. Even board members and key volunteers who have kids in the program, we are not there during our kids' time slots. We try to make this as fair and even as possible. So even if we have kids in the program, we're not there when they're trying out. Right. So it's consistent for everybody across the board.
Correct. Bat requirements. Oh, there's a lot of money in bats. So it's crazy and everybody's got their own opinions. We're not going to get into like what style bat you should have, but really this is just what's appropriate when they show up. I think the biggest, change is probably from machine pitch coming into 9s. You're able to get up to a 2 3/4, and you can, I think it's 2 1/4 unlimited still. I don't think, can you do 2 3/4 unlimited for 9s? Holy hell. So, it's just important that they have the right bat because you're going to buy it. And if you buy one bat, you're probably going to just have your kid use it this season. You don't want to go to the tournament and they got to toss that thing and they can't use it, right? And they're expensive, right? $200, $300, $400, $500 bats, and kids are going to use them. So just make sure, again, this will be posted, just make sure you get the right bat. Probably the biggest focus is really that change when you go from 13s and you're trying out for 14s. You do have to have a drop 5 bat. We're going to do our best because some of us have older kids to have a handful of drop 5 bats there. But if you are somebody that has a player who's going to be trying out for 14U team, that he has a drop 5 or a buddy that has one that he can just borrow for the day. It is pretty important because again, we want everybody to be trying out with the same equipment and no advantages. If you want to buy the more expensive bat because you think it has more advantages, God bless you. As long as it's a drop 5, we don't really care. So if it meets these requirements here, you're good to go.
These come from MBL or Metro Baseball League. So this is dictated by the league that we play in, Chanhassen. So again, this will be posted. Link to the bat rules are all going to be right there, but this all comes directly from NBL and what they require.
And from experience, coaches will call you out on them, call your kid out on them, and you can lose your mind out there. And I spent $499 on this bat, but you know what? If you just followed those simple rules, you wouldn't have had that issue, but you will get called out on it. And it's a really not fun situation.
Sounds
So
like you've been called out.
I may have called some other teams out on it. You never know. All right, tryout kind of team selection. try to be brief here, and then happy to, through Tom, answer any questions that may come up or in the room. So generally speaking, team selection is based on coach evaluations from the previous season. So about 50%. It's not an exact, we're not adding two divided or adding two numbers up and then, and then dividing by two or however we get there. It is truly about an average of 50% is their coach evaluation from last year. So we just collected a bunch of coaches' evaluations. We compiled that data, and it's not just one. So if Nick's the head coach, he fills it out. I'm an assistant. Derek's an assistant. Kim's assistant. We all fill that information out, and we blend that score for each kid. That accounts for, again, 50% of their score. 50% of the score is going to be the tryout score. Your kid could be, I'm just going to go through some examples. Your kid could be the best player. Everybody knows it on the 11U team, whatever it is. And they go and they have an unbelievable tryout. That kid's probably going to be on that top 11's team. It's just kind of the way it's going to work. He could be towards the bottom on both, and he's probably going to be on that bottom team. We could go home and say, God, my kid's the best, but the coaches just don't see it that way, right? Or your kid is the best. He goes and unfortunately he just puckers up at tryouts and he just can't get through it and he struggles. So that's why those scores get all blended together, right? It can't just be, well, I don't know, my kid was the best pitcher on the team, so therefore he's the best player. It takes into consideration, hitting, pitching, fielding, both infield and outfield, a couple variations of hitting. We do test speed, and we kind of blend all those scores into that overall tryout score. So it's not just if my kid's the best pitcher, he's the best on the team. It kind of takes into consideration all of those aspects. Again, we kind of blend those two scores together, spits out. There's some good formulas which I couldn't explain if I knew what they were. But generally speaking, they go do a good job in the coach eval. They go do a good job at tryouts. They're going to get placed, where they should. And at the end of the day, I will just make this plug. You may not agree with where they end up getting placed. Happy to have a conversation. Being on both sides of the equation, would love to have a more pleasant conversation. Would love to be able to at least walk through it and talk through kind of the ins and outs versus you just kind of lose it right out of the gate. So it's just kind of important, I think, that we know where we're at.
We do have a couple, I think, really good questions from the Q&A online. The first one is, what happens if a kid is transferring in from another program and does not have that coach evaluation? And the second one is, does the coach evaluation take sportsmanship into account?
So I'll go reverse order. Yes, coachability is one of the categories that the coaches will fill out. So if a kid is struggled all season long and coaches are working with it and parents are working with it, it's great. Hopefully there's some improvement, but definitely that is something that is ranked 100%. And then there's also a section on there where there are notes for coaches to fill in. So if it was just, I gave a kid an X number of score, I can explain that and why I did that as a coach, as an assistant coach or a head coach, wherever that may be. So that information is provided and it is looked at. With regards to kids coming in the past, and if we have the time and the resource or the availability, we'll also try to reach out to the program he may have come from to try to see if we can get some background information of what level they played at. If they're coming from Minnetonka or they're coming from Eden Prairie or something, we'll try to reach out to those coaches or that association to be like, okay, what level was he? A AA player, single A player, AAA player, and how does that kind of fit? So we'll try to get some of that information to the extent that we can. At the end of the day, that's probably a little bit of the factor, but more than likely we'll just end up doubling the tryout score from that perspective, and then adding in some color and some flavor. Did I miss anything?
No, you're perfect. Yeah, I mean that's kind of Derek walked through the timeline. Tryouts happening this weekend. Team selection is not going to happen for a couple more weeks because we want to give our player agents time to do the research that they need to do, make sure they properly take into account the coaches' scores, tryout scores, do the blended ranks the right way. So there's a ton of work that goes into this. So it's not just a fly by the seat of our pants effort. The amount of time and effort that these volunteers go through to do the right thing for these kids is sometimes immeasurable, but we do our best to take into account all these different factors to put the kids in the right spot for the coming season.
So real quick, I think we kind of talked about, coach selection. Just do that real quick.
Can I ask one more question on
Yeah.
that? So my son's transferring in from Chaska. So should I reach out to one of the player agents and saying, here's his coach, you can get feedback from him? Because he played travel. It was just having to switch to residency. city.
That would be great. The more information you have, the easier it
Yeah.
is. And then,
He has all that.
yep, that would be great.
Perfect.
That'd be fantastic. Makes it super efficient. There's just a few emails and things that we're working on, so that'd be great. Gonna do coach selection real quick.
It's on another slide.
It is? All right,
Yeah.
so we'll come back to coach selection. Sorry. So team selection, so just generally how it works is we have, again, if we're using a 12-player roster, and that is varied depending on the numbers that we saw earlier, depending on appropriate situations, make sure kids are all qualified to be able to play. The top 8 kids who, from a coach eval from the previous year and a tryout eval, the top 8 kids will be locked onto a team. So if Derek's coaching a team and I'm a player agent, he's going to come in and we're going to meet. There's 8 kids that he automatically gets. Those are the top ranked coach kids, the top tryout kids, combined score. Those are the 8 kids that are on the team. The next group of kids, and it's determined by the results, right? So it's not just a fixed number all the time, right? There's not like an extra 8 all the time in a pool or an extra 6 or an extra 10. There's a situation where an appropriate grouping of kids is placed into a pool. And what we allow is those coaches to select kind of to fill out that balance of the roster. Typically, parents are on the team, involved with the team. They understand what they have. They may look at it and go, I don't have a catcher. I need a catcher. Well, if we just rank the top 12 kids, there might not be a catcher in that mix. So we might have to go and find a catcher. We might try to balance out that team, with more pitchers or a first baseman or something to that extent. So the next 4 kind of final picks are Derek in this situation or example would be the guy to be able to select those next 4 picks with guidance from the player agents. I would tell you more often than not, I'll leave it at that, is we do go in order. There's just a rare exception when it's, hey, it just makes sense because these 11 guys are great. There's not a catcher in the mix and none of them want to play catcher, or it's a safety issue. So we're going to move up maybe a kid that might be a little bit farther down to fill out that roster. So, but really at the end of the day, the 4 picks are the head coach's opportunity to kind of fill out that team. And then you snap that'd be the AAA team. And then we repeat that process. The next 8 kids are the locks for the AA team. And then we go through that pool and then we go down to the single A and we take those next 8 kids and we lock and we just kind of keep going down that path. So it's pretty simple. We think it makes some sense and we're hoping some other sports decide to maybe go that way where the coaches could have some picks and,
Get on the basketball.
hoops or something. So anyway,
Great. I think you're good.
is that me? I'm done.
No, yeah, I think,
That's it.
That's
So
it.
real
Question?
quick, can you go back one slide real quick?
Yeah.
Can you talk to how do you determine how many AAA teams we have, AA teams, single A teams, and what's the thought process around how that's determined?
Yeah, so typically we've in the past, and we're trying to evolve, right? And not just do the same thing because that's what we've done every year. But typically we're going to take kind of the top group and leave it as a AAA team. We look at the data too, and we kind of compare it to prior years. So tryout scores, coaches scores are different, but tryout scores really kind of educate us on, is there an opportunity for these guys to compete? If we've all had older kids, and so my older team would try out significantly higher than my younger team. Both were really good and are still good, but at the end of the day, we want to put kids where they are appropriately where they belong, right? And so we don't want to move up 8 kids to go play AAA. It's not going to be a lot of fun. So we're gonna take those tryout scores and we're gonna try to mirror AAA, AA, single A team at each level. That's the ultimate goal. If tryout scores are low, and maybe the previous season outlined a losing record, and we had some coaches and parents all kind of come back and were like, listen, we don't belong there. We're going to take all that information and then try to place that team appropriately. Speak from example or actual reality. I had a AAA team kind of coming up and we moved to AA, and it was one of the best experiences for those kids. We had a losing record and it wasn't all about wins because we didn't go from losing every game to winning every game, but we went from not really being competitive to, a team to go place and do well in tournaments. Don't win them all, but it was definitely a much more enjoyable experience for the kids. So, we try to work that down, AAA, AA, single A. Sometimes there's not enough AAs and we'll put together 2 single A teams or 3 single A teams. It's just really based on tryout scores, how things kind of shake out and what that looks like for that age group.
Question, when you have multiple single A teams, do you try and balance those three single A teams, or is it the high, medium, and lows of the single A teams?
So typically, we have tried to balance that. There's been some change over recent years of having different discussions, and we're handling those and trying to get through those. There may make some sense to have two AA teams at a level. There may be two single A or three single A teams. How does that really look? Are we looking at each kid individually? Are we looking at the program in totality? How does that look? But typically right now, it would be kind of the top 12, next 12, next 12, and, kind of just stacked at levels. When we have two or multiple teams at a level, we have typically snaked them. That said, that's evolving, and there's opportunities for us to stack those as well.
That answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, my turn. My name is Kim Flatmeyer, and I'm the age director for the 9 through 11-year-old travel. I want to encourage you to be a coach because it's really awesome. I enjoyed it. I did it for 5-6 years. These guys have done it, and be a volunteer on the board. So you can do all those things. On our website, it shows you the requirements that are needed when you register. They do a background check, a concussion training, and an abuse awareness. Every couple years, those are due, and we have a safety officer that monitors that and tracks that. We do interviews for the head coaches because we check out any previous coaching that they've done, any feedback they've gotten. We see if they are a good fit. Like when we meet with them, they'll interview with a team of us, and we have questions, and we'll see if they're a good fit for CAA. Once that happens, then we sit down with Pat, and he helps make out those teams once we get that far, right? Was there something else about that head coach part?
Nope, yeah, we
Okay.
take it serious. I mean,
No.
it's not everybody can be a coach. I mean, we want as many coaches as possible, but we want the best individuals to represent CAA to be the face of the team, which is the head coach. So we take it very serious.
Yep. Head coaches will be contacted prior to we start making the teams that we talked about, so they can help finish up the last of the teams. Each team will get 4 members for their staff. That includes the head coach. Then you can have 3 assistants. You can have 2 assistants and a team manager. However you'd like to work that out. It all ties down to this volunteer credit, which we'll get into with our next slide. And only 4 per team get those credit hours.
Thank you. And that comes up every single year. So just to reiterate that, there's 4 volunteer credit opportunities on a team for coaches and team managers.
Yep. I mean, if you all of a sudden think you have a mom that did Game Changer and you really want to get her hours, well, if you already have your 4, we're not going to give you a 5. That's just the way it is. You get your 4. Volunteering. We are an all volunteer organization. We all volunteer our own time. Nobody gets paid, so we're all in it for fun, right? Each family, we do it by families here, which is really nice. So if you have multiple kids, you only have to do 8 hours of volunteering, and that can be a coach, assistant coach, team manager, or we have lots of other volunteer opportunities. We do a lot of tournaments. There are the tryouts you can do volunteering at, uniform try-ons, which are really easy. Uniform try-ons, right? You can sit there and measure kids. We do the golf event that does need some volunteers as well. So there's lots of opportunities for that, because we don't want to cash your check. We don't want your money. We want your hours, right? Because it takes all of us to do it. All right. The volunteer check is 1 per family. And when you go to uniform try-on, we expect that check. We'll have a roster list. We check everybody's name off so that you will not get fitted unless you have that check. That's just how we roll, right?
It's very similar to other programs, right? You go to football, you don't get size for pads and helmets without a check. Same concept. So we've actually in previous years had to turn people away to say, come back either tomorrow or in an hour with a check, and then we'll get you size. So we do take a pretty hard stance on that.
Yep. And then we put it in a box and we don't cash them until the end of the year. We have a volunteer coordinator that tracks all this for us, and they cross-reference, make sure everybody who's not done their hours, and they cash those checks. But on the CAA website, they post all those things as dibs, as they call it, for you can look at all the opportunities that you have. Is there any questions about the volunteer part?
Last thing is they must be completed by July 31st, right? That's our end of our volunteer calendar. So we try to do as many opportunities up to July 31st to help families, meet the requirement. And then the next year starts on August 1st. So tryouts this weekend are for the 2024 season.
I have one thing,
Yeah.
just in Amanda's thing, our volunteer coordinator. So all of the opportunities are not posted today through the year.
Yeah.
So you will see, do not panic if you go to those dips and you don't see enough opportunities between now through July 31st. We just don't know what we have. So instead of posting them and then canceling them and having you scramble, we wait and post them until we know that they are needed. So don't worry, there's always plenty of opportunities, but there's no need to panic if you do not see enough opportunity.
And then Nick talked about our baseball board. This is kind of our organizational chart.
Yep, so again, we're the baseball operating committee. This is where we sit, but we're part of the Diamond Sports board. So those above, Jerry, Sarah, Tom, Shane, Dwayne, Amanda, and Tom O'Neill. They are shared services across baseball and softball. We focus primarily on the baseball side of operations. Again, we're all volunteers. This is all for fun.
So because it's so much fun, we want you to come and join us. Be a coach and also be a part of the board. I've been enjoying it because I get to do things that affects all the association, right? Like I really felt like our kids needed hitting nets. Oh, now they all have hitting nets, right? Nick, you've had some things that you've been pushing for that you feel strongly about, and so you can have some impact that way.
So come October, so our positions run through end of September. October is when we do voting for new positions. There'll be information on our website if you care to join the board, right? You can do that, but come October is when we do the voting for the next couple of year terms and then move on with the following season. So, yep. And again, it's a great opportunity. I've been doing this for many years now. But again, there's always opportunities to make small improvements with a great team of other volunteers to make the association wonderful. So a lot of fun.
And lots of different roles. There's equipment guys, there's field guys, there's volunteer coordinators, we're looking really for a field coordinator. It's one of our biggest pushes lately is that we really like Chanhassen fields and we think they're really nice. We just need some help managing them. The city does a pretty good job, but they don't have the staff and it's gotten even worse. Their college kids don't.
The city hires employees. They're low on employees because they're usually college kids. So to what Kim was saying, one of the key ones that we're looking for is a director of field operations, right? That's literally to help not do the work of managing the fields, but helping with the city to identify key trouble areas or areas of improvements. We've got a laundry list of capital projects we want to work on, new dugouts, updates to scoreboards and things like that. So that kind of help kind of coordinate and run with that. So that's a really key one for us for next year.
Yeah, just wondering if board service qualifies as a volunteer hours.
Yes, yep. Board service, key volunteer, assistance to board members, things like that, all cover the volunteer requirement.
Mhm. It is more than 8 hours though. There's that. One of our most fun fundraisers that we do for equipment is the Diamond Sports Golf tournament that we will now do in September. It's a great one. It's super fun. All the coaches and players hang out. I shouldn't say coaches and players, parents and coaches, families hang out and golf. We raised some really good money. We've done some new equipment. Like I said, the batting nets that we all got this year, the teams. That was great. That came out of that fun. Updating the dugouts at Lake Ann. They all just have fence there now. We want to jazz them up a little bit. Keep working on Lake Susan. That's our flagship field, right? The high school guys play there. They want to keep that nice. We need some new storage containers where we keep all of our equipment on the field so we don't have to drag it to each field. So we need some new equipment there. And then there's scholarships. As you saw in those slides, it was $600 some to play baseball. Some families can't afford that, so we need to have a scholarship fund, and some of that money goes for that. So it's a great fundraiser. See Jess there if you have any questions. She is looking for donations and sponsorships, correct? So if you have any ideas, see us about that. Last one is our policies, procedures, and codes of conduct. We work really hard to updating our code of conduct for the parents, players, and coaches, and that's all up on our website now, which is really nice to see. It shows all of our policies, how we do things. One of the best things that we did is we have an incident report form now that's on the website. So you as a parent, if you're at a game and your head coach is a total jerk, right, and you don't want to confront them, you can come and fill out this form, and it comes to us. Right? Or if the other team, their coach was being a jerk, right? Come here and put it in there so we have it in writing and then we can follow up as a board, right? Or if you have an issue with an umpire, right? Some kind of issues going on, use that form too, and I will keep track of all that. So
And it's just not behavioral incidents,
True.
it's injuries and things like that. I mean, I was at a game where I was coaching and the opposing team, their shortstop broke his arm, right? So from a CYA, from an association perspective, we want to document that, right? This incident form is a great tool to do this. To keep track of things, our safety officer follows up on any incident that comes through here. To make sure that everybody's okay, that if there's internal things that we need to do, if there's discussions with other associations, we take care of that. So incident form, it's a great tool, use this for literally anything that does come up during the season, before the season, right, after the season. It's a tool for all of us.
yeah, especially the note is results of the doctor visit. We want to know about it because then we keep track of that. So and then back to
Yeah,
you.
okay, I think we're almost done here.
Yeah.
You want to call out the Dugout Club? So the Dugout Club is another volunteer organization that specializes in capital project improvements. So batting cages, dugouts, lights at Lake Susan. This is the organization, we partner them from the CAA perspective to identify opportunities for improvements at a capital level. So we can talk about improvements to the lake and dugouts. We'll work with the Dugout Club to make that happen. So they're a big partner of ours. I do have to, give them all the praise in the world because they do work really hard. They're volunteer run just like we are. So great partner in capital work in the area. Also, we want to call out our sponsors. So these sponsors do help with just kind of operations of the association, the money that they give us. TCO and Shields are two big ones. You probably saw it this past year. They're big enough sponsors. We actually put their name on the jerseys this year. And then other ones are either in-kind sponsors or they help sponsor teams in the association. I think that's it. So was this helpful? Hopefully. If so, any questions that we can answer? Yes. Go ahead.
So with nines, how does communication occur when they're playing on two different teams at the same time? In
Good.
regards to pitch count, in regards to
Good.
anything and everything?
Good question. So typically, a head coach on a tournament team will also be a coach on one of the in-house 9 teams. And then they just work with the other head coaches on the in-house program and say, hey, I've got a tournament coming up on this weekend. What's your plan to pitch Bobby, right? If he's going to pitch on Tuesday, great, then I can pitch him during the weekend. So it's a lot of kind of inner team communication, but typically a head coach on a tournament team will be a coach on an in-house team and have visibility to some of the players and then work with the other coaches just to kind of understand where kids are playing and how it's going. So that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is it required that you coach both travel and in-house or?
So no, so the question was, do you have to coach both in-house and travel? No, you don't. Typically, if you're going to coach, you're going to be there anyway. So that's usually how it works, but you do not need to do both.
Can you talk about time commitment for 9 between the league team and the travel team? Like, what should I expect on?
Yep, good question. So the question was, what's the time commitment for the 9-year-old age group? So travel teams, right? You'll have 3 tournaments. Those are typically Friday, Saturday, and if you advance, you'll play on Sunday. And then the following week, you'll have an in-house team practice on Monday, usually a game on Tuesday, and a game on Thursday, and then a travel team practice on Wednesday. So there are times where my youngest had baseball 21 days in a row. Is that going to happen for every team? No. You have to make every practice. If you tell the coaches, hey, I just came off a long weekend, no. But yeah, there are some times where you will be playing baseball quite often. How does that translate to 10, 11, 12? Very similar, because instead of in-house, they're playing Metro Baseball League. So we'll have a couple Metro Baseball League games during the week, a practice and tournaments on the weekend. So it's kind of preparing them for that. But yeah, that's kind of a typical schedule. Yep.
And the games aren't as long, those in-house games aren't as long.
Yep.
I mean, hour, 15, hour and a half.
Yep.
Right, where your travel games are gonna be 2 hours.
Question?
I don't want to create more work for you guys, but
We're looking for, hey, we're looking for volunteers.
in this spot where some of us have an obscene, an embarrassing amount of expensive bats sitting in our garage getting dust that probably 10, 9s and 10s. Could there be an opportunity for like a CAA marketplace where, hey, you could buy a $300 bat for $50 from somebody that still has plenty of life in it?
If you want to help organize that, yes, we'll gladly do that. No, I'm kidding. So the idea is for those online, the CAA marketplace where we can kind of buy and sell used equipment. We have talked about that in the past of like, what would that look like? Obviously, it's a lot more work involved than just talking about it. So we're